there, everybody. Thanks for joining me for another one-man review. Today I'll be taking a look at issues 4 and 5 of Chad Bilyeu and Juliette de Wit's The Re-Up. It's always a good day when you get your re-up, and I got 2 re-ups on the same day. Chad's over in America from Amsterdam. He came over from Mocha, has been going around slanging his product, his comics, and so way to get them cheaper, so I get them like whenever Chad's over here. You didn't have to do the international shipping. The re-up, if you've watched the channel for a while, you've seen me cover it. We have an interview with Chad that I would definitely encourage you to go watch. Really solid, awesome dude, super smart and hilarious. One of the funniest interviews we've had, probably. Throwing some shade at Gary Groth. Got a little story about Gary Groth in that one, so go check that out. This is really one of my favorite autobiographical comics going, and probably one of my favorite autobiography comics of all time. If you don't know about this book, it's the true life story of Chad's time in Washington, D.C. and that area, selling marijuana and moving his way up into being a pretty large distributor of drugs, making a good amount of money as a drug dealer. He's also at least where the story's at still, he's a student at Georgetown University, and that's basically where he starts, is selling to students there. So it's a really awesome, well observed picture of somebody coming up, starting out in the drug game and moving their way up. I think Chad said this is going for 24 issues. I could be wrong, don't quote me on that. So we're still at the beginning of his journey here, and you see his business developing. These books, I also would say, are pretty much like a how-to guide, not in terms of just selling drugs, but like a how to hustle. And by hustle, I don't mean just flipping drugs or just selling your comics, but how to be a person who gets what you want out of life, who has goals and goes and takes them, who thinks strategically, who knows how to assert themselves without being an asshole, or being an asshole when you need to be, but never just going in and being an asshole for no reason. It's just how to stand your ground, how to make sure you get what you need out of life. And so there's lots of little wisdom dropped throughout the book, and I really enjoy that. There's also just funny stories because you're dealing with someone selling weed. So here he's selling to a kid at Georgetown, and the guy's like, "Hey man, you got to be discreet about this." He says, "Look, I'll definitely be in the Senate, so my record has to remain spotless." And just the kind of dirt that people who deal drugs must have on so many people that they see moving into politics and being like, "Man, I sold that guy weed or coke or whatever when he was a dumbass kid." Like Brett Kavanaugh, people like that. So somebody was selling them their booze and their weed. So there's a lot of interesting stories like that without giving away actual names. There's one image here where Chad's talking to a guy about a fish tank. I don't want to give away what the conversation's about, but it's one of these moments where it's kind of giving you some game, telling you how to hustle a little bit, and it ends with Chad saying, "I fucks with that goldfish." Really awesome drawing here by Juliette de Wit. Also pointing out the production on this, super awesome. They've done this two-tone thing with this dot pattern, and Juliette de Wit has really used the green and the black, which could be a very strange combination, used it very well throughout. And then I think Chad does the production on it, and he really knows what he's doing on that. But anyways, if you want to find out why Chad fucks with that goldfish, go get yourself re-up number 4 and buy everything else while you're at it. And then a really interesting piece of this, since it is autobiography, is Chad puts in his official academic transcript, so you can see his grades and you can see what kind of student he was. Pretty good student. He didn't like radicalism in American history, which is funny. That's the only one he got a bad grade in, but everything else is A's and B's. So this is a well-educated, very smart guy who's also super street smart and street savvy, and the combination between those two things makes him a really engaging writer and just a really fun person to be around, a fun character to interact with. In the book 5, we continue on with his business growing. He's able to like now buy more weight basically because he's been saving up. So again, showing you like how to not waste your money but up your game, like by saving carefully and things. And in this, he's talking about probably going back to Amsterdam and saying like, oh, I visited there and it was so cool and stuff. And this, in the back of this book, he's kind of talking about this, or I think in the back of issue 4, he's kind of talking about this as a prequel to Chad in Amsterdam, which is another autobiographical, more like American Splendor type of autobiography than this, which is one continuous narrative, which if you haven't read Chad in Amsterdam, again, really fantastic comics. I think they're on par with the best of Harvey Picar's American Splendor. That's got a new hardcover collection that's just come out, I think, so check that out as well. But this is kind of the story, it seems like, of why Chad wound up in Amsterdam. The drama starts to increase in issue 5 even more because there's a hint that there's a second weed dealer. People are like, man, fuck this, I'm gonna go to the other weed guy then. And Chad's like, you know his weed shit, and like, you know, you're gonna pay for the superior product. And he's kind of trying to figure it. It seems like there's going to be a conflict between him and the other dealer at some point. So you're starting to get like this conflict building, this potential for violence that keeps the story going, even while there's all these other interesting facts and characters showing up that make it compelling. Something else that I noticed in the 2 issues, I didn't put a note on it, but in this issue, I really liked there was a page here where Chad's talking to a professor about Buddhism and the Four Noble Truths, and it kind of has this mandala-like structure here that I really liked. Then in this issue, he's talking to another guy who is bringing some coke to a party, who's into like yogic ideas and the idea of the third eye and the chakras and all of these things. So there's these interesting beats of like Chad encountering these other world religions through that's kind of creating a rhythm between the issues. I don't know if those were in previous issues because I didn't read them back to back like this, so I'm going to have to go back and look at the first 3 issues to see if that was in there as well. It's harder to pick up on some of that stuff when you're reading them one at a time with months and months in between. This is obviously building towards being collected all in a graphic novel at some point as well, and I think those things will stand out more clearly there. But I thought that was a really interesting theme. And that just shows the power of Chad as a writer. Like, he's not just a good writer of dialogue and things, but he thinks very structurally and strategically and tactically about how he presents the story in those regards. And then also on top of that, Chad is just a fucking damn good researcher and writer in general. This piece here is, he always has like stuff written in the back. This one is an essay, a little short essay that really succinctly covers a whole bunch of political ongoings that have to do with weed being illegal and why it was illegal, why they couldn't get medical marijuana in Washington, D.C. for many, 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 many years. And Chad kind of tracks like the political ongoings and the characters in that, how they put like this like Initiative 59 got snuck into this bill, and you know he's obviously researched that very well, and it shows the academic side of Chad. Like, he's presented in the book as someone who has a big vocabulary and is very smart, but he's like, you know, pretty street smart as well. In this, you really see like someone who went to a high level private university that can do research, that can write really well, could like be an academic if they wanted to, and again has just chosen to live outside of all of these systems. The competent outsider, again, I think is one of the probably the core ethics of growing to be one of the core ethics of, you know, the channel, I guess, and living the line, what me and Sean are both all about, and the people that we resonate with. So it's this kind of stuff, you know. It's like Ryan Holmberg being the rogue scholar, not the Rhodes scholar, the rogue scholar of manga history that he is. And Chad's like this rogue scholar that's looking at social structures and histories of the cities he lives in and things, and is presenting that both in the comics and in the back matter. So really compelling project all the way through. These are some of the best comics that are being made in the last however many years. And if you're not reading the re-up, you're really missing out on what I think will be a future legend in comics. And yeah, you're also missing out on a lot of really good life advice that I think is being presented in terms of like how to be a competent outsider, how to have your hustle. So go out, get the re-up 1 through 5, and grab yourself a copy of the collected Chad in Amsterdam as well. You will not regret it. Centralia is an awesome, gorgeous comic by rising Dutch star Neil Van de Peet. This is his first work. It's a really great sci-fi story. There's a world in the future where the sun has gotten so hot that people can't be on the ground, so they have to run around. There's a lot of conceits that go with that. You know, what is the world that looks like? And I think you can see by the art that Sean's description of this book as like a Moebius for young adults, a YA Moebius, is a really great description of this really gorgeous and like wild, wacky, fun book.